What's up, guys? Welcome back to Comment8, a podcast I only started like a week ago. I'm your host, Dylan Mathiot, and if you don't know who I am, I make YouTube videos on Number 8 Entertainment on YouTube. You can just search that up. It's exactly how it sounds, Number 8 Entertainment, all one word, and the 8 is the number. And today's episode is, like I said in the previous episode, going to be about school. And if you haven't seen the previous podcast, this is going to sometimes reference that, so you might want to watch that first, but no need to. Although it would be great if you saw this one first, if you go back to the first one. So, yeah. Anyway, let's dive into some things about my schooling and just school in general. Basically, some of the earliest memories might not be accurate since the last time I even went to school was in 2013. So there definitely will be some fuzziness in the earlier years. Each school that I went to, I was in the Penn Manor School District. For preschool, I don't really count that, so I'm not going to tell you where that was. But I went to Hambright Elementary School, Manor Middle School, Penn Manor High School, and I went to a tiny bit of college, like half a semester at Millersville University, but I will talk about that later. So basically in school, my overall grades throughout elementary school, starting in third grade, since that was like when they started actually giving grades and stuff like that, I pretty much got straight A's all throughout elementary school, except one C in third grade, which I was devastated by, and I fucking hated that teacher. Let me tell you about that. Well, I won't tell you. Just, she was a bitch. That's all I'm saying right now. And throughout elementary school, I was pretty much one of the smartest kids in my grade, with the exception of like 2 or 3 people. One of the girls in my grade was actually in like an advanced math class where she was like a grade ahead of everybody. I wasn't quite at that level, but I was one of the smarter kids in my school, in my grade at least. And I was even one of the few kids to get into Algebra 1 in 7th grade once I got to middle school. And middle school, speaking of that, that's when things started going downhill. That was when I stopped caring about doing homework, which made my grades completely suffer, even though I knew the material and did well on everything else like classwork, quizzes, tests, etc. But I also found that there were like kids that were smarter than me from other elementary schools, because when we combined 3 other of the elementary schools came to that middle school. And I was not one of the smartest kids at that point. I was still smart, but like not at a lot of kids' levels, and that kind of like unmotivated me to like actually even really try. So yeah, that was another factor. And in high school, once I got there, my grades alternated. It seemed like in 9th grade, it was fucking terrible. 10th grade was actually decent. 11th grade sucked ass, and 12th grade was actually pretty good. And despite all of that homework bullshit, I still ended up with like a 3.4 GPA, which was pretty good, all things considered, I would say at least. But honestly, most of my bad grades were due to missing homework. So, yeah, I fucking hated homework. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, I guess my grades were at least good enough to get me accepted into the local college, the 4-year college, Millersville University. And basically, I'm going to talk about this very short college experience that I had. So you know how I hated doing homework and I just hated doing work in general. So I actually went for biology, specifically marine biology, but obviously you had to take all the gen eds and stuff like that. So yeah, I kind of just eventually, we'll get to that. So basically, I went to orientation right before school started in August of 2013, where I actually had two people that I went to school with in my group out of every single person that was at that group at that orientation. Two people from my school, and one of them was one of my best friends, were in my fucking group for some reason. That was a pretty cool week of learning about college life and bonding with fellow group members. And then I started classes in August that same month of 2013, and I fucking hated it. I ended up hating it within the first month. Honestly, I secretly stopped going to classes and didn't tell my parents or grandparents, whom I was living with at the time, since it was closer to the college. And one day they found out when they saw me biking around my old neighborhood and confronted me when I got home, but they didn't tell me that they saw me until I got home and I didn't see them. So yeah, ooh, yeah, I felt really shitty during that whole ordeal. I felt like nothing was right in the world, and like it wasn't ever gonna get better, and I was never gonna get my life together. It sent me into a pretty deep depression. At that point, I was still working for this local grocery store as a stocker, and I didn't particularly like that job. Jobs are for another episode, though. I don't plan on going to college again, honestly, since I've been noticing that college is becoming more and more obsolete as the internet learning is becoming more and more popular and cheaper or even free, especially on YouTube, where you have like SciShow, Veritasium, Vsauce, all of like the cool learning channels. All that shit is absolutely free. Not that I wouldn't consider going back, but honestly, it would have to be like a very good motivation. Like, even if it was just to like get my degree in something so I could get a job that I really wanted. But yeah, I honestly don't plan on going to college. So yeah, after that, let's talk about, after that kind of sort of depressing stuff, I guess we'll talk about my favorite teachers in school. Let's get a little more lighthearted. First up is Mrs. Caulfield. She was my first grade teacher. And what was really funny is that her husband was a teacher as well, but in high school. He was my 11th grade English teacher. And what was funny is Mrs. Caulfield was the sweetest woman ever. And yet everyone, including myself, did not really like Mr. Caulfield. I don't know why she's with him. Maybe he just like, I don't know. It seemed like he was kind of going mentally, like he was getting older and like some sort of dementia was setting in. I don't know. But at the same time, he was kind of like known even back in the day, because my aunt, he's old enough. He's been there long enough that my aunt, who's like in her 40s, had him. And even back then, when his mind wasn't gone or something, he was a fucking mean son of a bitch, apparently. So, yeah, that was one of my classes I hated the most, and that was 11th grade when my grades fucking sucked. But anyway, let's get to my 5th grade teacher, which was my favorite teacher of all time, honestly, Mrs. Martin. Yeah, as she was there, she actually was the 3rd grade teacher before I went into 5th grade, and once I went into 5th grade, I had her. And what was funny is I had the worst 3rd grade teacher ever, and everyone loved Mrs. Martin, so I was like, why the fuck did I not have her? But I got her in 5th grade, and that was probably one of the best school years I ever had, because she was like so supportive of everything, and she was so nice, and I guess I was like one of her favorite students or something like that too. I told her that my mom was having twins. It's crazy that the twins were born back in 2005 when I was in 5th grade, and now they're 14. I'll if you don't know who the twins are, they're my twin siblings. They're not my twin, because that would be weird if they were like 11 years younger than me and they were my twin. That would be, we were triplets. Just, you just don't look too much into it. But yeah, they're twins. And yeah, they were born back then, and she was like, "Oh, bring some pictures of them when they're like," and I did. So, and she actually, which I think this is the coolest thing ever. She still, because Evan and Ella, neither of them, the twins, that's their names, neither of them had her, but she knew who they were when they were in 5th grade. And they said that she still has the pictures of them when they were babies in her classroom, even though they demolished the old school and moved right next to the middle school, which is fucking awesome. So shout out to Mrs. Martin. And then my 9th grade history teacher was Mr. Herman. He was like Santa Claus. Like, he looked like him. He was jolly, and he was one of the nicest guys you would ever meet. Yeah. And basically he gave out lots of extra credit, so it was basically impossible to fail his class. Like, he would do the thing where he'd go to we would learn about Lewis and Clark, which I always thought was really cool, because one of the things I really liked was biology, and Lewis and Clark discovered so many damn species and cataloged them that I was really interested in that lesson. And he said, hey, for extra credit, well, your assignment is literally go to this website that I am giving you that has every single species that Lewis and Clark found. Write down 10 of them on a piece of, sorry, my voice cracked. Write down 10 of them on a piece of paper. And for every extra one that you get, I'm going to give you 5 points of extra credit. And he literally gave us the website. Sorry, my mouth hit the mic if that sounded weird. He literally gave us the website with every species. So, like, people were getting like hundreds of points of extra credit, which was insane. So, yeah. Mr. Herman, he's retired at this point, but he's one of the older teachers because my mom even knew of him back in the day, too. All right. So, it's time, because I burped, it's time for the game that I had last time, but this one's going to be more structured. Every time I burp, you take a shot. Starting now. So 1 shot down. If you don't have alcohol, I'll pause and let you go get some real quick. I'll pause for like 10 seconds. Time's up, bitch. All right, so if you don't have alcohol, you're fucked. Unless you're literally carrying a phone on you and listening to the podcast from that, and you can just get alcohol while you're still listening to me. So poked a hole in that. And then my final favorite teacher would be Mr. Urban. He was my 12th grade government and economics teacher, and he was also my homeroom, which is study hall teacher. And he was like a young dude. Like, he was barely out of college, and he was like the teacher that all the girls like kind of had a crush on, I guess. But he was like a cool ass dude. He was chill as shit. He played the drums, and he was just like, when I went into the talent show at school, there was another act of a girl in my grade, and she had asked him to play the drums for her while she sang, and he did, and it was fucking awesome. And both him and I were in the talent show together, technically. So, like, when I got back to class, he was like, he had a kind of really deep voice. He was like, Dylan, you're awesome, man. I didn't know you could even talk, let alone sing. Because I was one of those quiet kids. Not the kind of quiet kids where you're like, all the other kids with the pumped up. Is that a little too dark of a joke? Nah, I don't think so. This is a podcast. This isn't supposed to be serious. But anyway, yeah, so he just had one of my favorite classes in general. I actually got like all A's in that class, even though I sat at the back with my best friend and we basically just fucked around the entire time. So yeah, that was like one of my best friends. He wasn't my best friend, but he was one of my best friends. His name was Michael, and we just kind of chilled in the back, and yeah. So yeah, moving on from favorite teachers, let's talk about my best and worst memories from school. We're going to go from elementary, then middle, and then high school with each best and worst. So starting with elementary school, the best memory that I can think of, honestly, was pretty much all of 5th grade. From hanging out with my best friend JT, to having the best teacher ever, to being in the school band playing the clarinet, although I stopped after that year because I did not like the clarinet, but it was fun being in the band, to doing a Christmas rap in front of the whole school. Yeah. Anyway, then my worst, probably from elementary school, even though it's funny nowadays, back then it was like terrifying and like shocking to me. But there was this time in 3rd grade when we lined up to go back inside after recess, and one of the teachers was lecturing us how to be more quiet until the back of the line, until like from the back of the line, one of the so-called bad kids shouted, "Shut the fuck up, you old bag," and just took off running off of school property. That shocked me to the core back then. Like, I was one of those like nervous goody two shoes that was like, oh fuck, this kid just like fucking swore at a teacher and ran. But yeah, I mean, I think it's still funny now, but back then I just was like, damn, dude. And anyway, so they ended up calling the guidance counselor and the principal to come outside, and eventually the counselor found this kid in a fucking bush, chased him down, and tackled him to the ground. That I don't know what else to say about that, but fuck. Anyway, my best memory from middle school, honestly, I don't remember a lot of middle school, and the things I remember were not good, because middle school was fucking stupid. But anyway, I basically meeting all the new kids and seeing some new girls that I kind of thought were cute. And I was like, all right. But I was going to do nothing about it because, you know, I'm such a nervous motherfucker, dude, especially back then. But probably the worst from middle school, honestly, I had never been in trouble at school before, but once in 7th grade. This was not like me like acting out or anything or doing something bad, but like I forgot my math book a few days in a row and got lunch detention. I honestly couldn't believe it when the teacher told me. I felt horrible, like I didn't belong there. And until one of my friends, who's another good kid, showed up there too. I don't even remember actually what he did to get in there, but it was a little more comforting that at least he was there, even though we weren't allowed to talk. But it was like, all right, all these kids are like, why is Dylan Mathiot in here? Why he's such a fucking goody two shoes? But then my other friend, who was also pretty a good kid, was in there too. So it's like I didn't feel so alone. Yeah. So honestly, then my best memory from high school was hands down, like I said in my karaoke first episode, was performing in the school talent show. Hands fucking down. It was just my best memory from school in general, let alone high school. And my worst probably from high school was just homework related stuff in general. I hated doing it and my grades suffered because of it, like I mentioned before. So yeah. I'm gonna talk right now about some regrets that I have had. Just gonna list them off real quick here. Maybe just do a little exposition talking afterwards. One thing I regret not joining any sport for more than 2 years. I played football for 2 years, and that was the longest sport I ever played. I played t-ball in like kindergarten, or maybe it was just like little league baseball or something like that. And I played that for 1 year. I didn't like it. I played football only because my dad forced me to. But I feel like if I would have kept that up, I would have been good. I played recreational basketball for 1 year. It was all right. But the one thing I wish I would have joined was volleyball, because a lot of my friends played it, and I was actually really fucking good at it. It's like honestly, I could have been on the team, but I just didn't join because you know, I'm stupid. But yeah, I also regret not joining chorus until 12th grade. And the only reason I joined it was to fill an elective slot. My brother was in it. So yeah, I regret not joining chorus because you might know by this point, I fucking love singing. And I feel like that would have like improved my social life too, because a lot of people would hear me sing early on and be like, oh, you're actually cool. At least you're a good singer. I don't know if you're cool or not. Let's see here. I regret not joining any clubs once they became available in middle school. I regret neglecting my homework, like I said. I regret not going after girls I liked because I was a nervous fuck. And yeah, honestly, I feared rejection, which to some extent I honestly still do when I'm at bars. So, yeah, those are my regrets from school. Let's talk about some friendships. Uh, now, I've had a few best friends throughout my school career. So in first grade, I was friends with a kid named Ian who eventually moved, and I never saw him until middle school, where we became friends again, but never to that level that we were in first grade. In fifth grade, I met JT, whom I mentioned earlier, and we became best friends until early on in middle school. We both played football. We both liked filthy humor, and he was one of the kids that did the Christmas rap with me, along with some of my other friends, Eric and Laura. And I honestly, after we kind of just fell apart, grew apart, not fell apart, we grew apart. I didn't have like a real definitive best friend until about ninth grade, when at my grandma's house one day, my brother and I were out front just like messing around. And a neighbor kid and his mom that I kind of knew, who was like 4 years younger than me, walked by, and then his mom was like, "Hey, you want to play badminton with these guys?" And he was like, "Sure." And we were like, "Cool, yeah." And this kid hung out with Colin and I ever since then, until after I graduated high school. This kid hung out with Colin, my brother, and I almost every time we went to our grandparents, and he became one of my longest friends. His name is Curtis, and we used to play Yu-Gi-Oh!, jump on our grandparents' trampoline, make YouTube videos. Once I started that back in 2011, we would watch funny YouTube videos on his computer room, like Ray William Johnson's Equals 3 and Tomska's ASDF movies or ASDF movies, like OG YouTube shit. Shit, girl. I don't know why I did that, but whatever. We would go on Newgrounds and play Flash games. There was this website I remember that it was called Beat Me Up, and it was literally just a guy just flailing around, and you could just like throw him into spikes and he'd just like scream. It was like this stick guy and he bled, and we thought that was the funniest shit ever for some reason. We would also go to the creek down the street and look for salamanders and crayfish. We'd play Call of Duty, especially Modern Warfare 2 on his Xbox 360, which was my first experience with Call of Duty, and I still get a nostalgia boner for that game, especially Modern Warfare 2. But enough about that, because this is about school, and despite being in the same school district, we were never in the same school at the same time, since we didn't go to the same elementary school. And since he's 4 years younger than me, just as I graduated high school the next year, that's when he entered high school. But we still hung out all the fucking time outside of school. And that's honestly all I have for this episode. So remember to check out my YouTube channel, Number 8 Entertainment. Check out my Patreon if you want to support the podcast and the channel on YouTube, any of my internet endeavors. You can go to www.patreon.com/number8entertainment. And thank you guys for listening. And I might make a part 2 of this podcast, because all the experiences I left out that might be worth talking about. And now next episode, stay tuned for the next episode where I talk about my past and my current job. So ask me some questions about like jobs in general on either my Twitter, which is @number8ent, my Facebook, which is Number 8 Entertainment, or the comment section on the YouTube version of this podcast. And I will see you guys in the next one.